Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Steven Melendez, and I'm going to be bringing you the latest and greatest in basketball news from around the NBA. Welcome back, everyone, to your favorite basketball podcast. We've got a lot of things going on here, a lot of emotional stuff going on. It's been a very difficult week of NBA basketball with a lot of tough news going around the NBA. But we also got some guys playing absolutely incredible. Like, the league is still skill-wise, it's as good as it's ever been, in my opinion. I mean, you got some of the best to ever do it, doing it right now, and we are ridiculously lucky to be watching right now, guys. Like, years from now, we're going to be talking to, our kids or, whatever, and just telling them about all the incredible players that played during this era, like Curry, Westbrook, a little hint at what we're going to be talking about today, like, just ridiculous. And so let's just get into what we're going to be talking about in today's show, a little rundown of what we're going to be discussing. First, I want to talk about the Lamarcus Aldridge news, talk about his, retirement. He's at that age already, but it's a real shock to the NBA, and it's sad news considering what, happened in his last game. And I also want to talk about the Jamal Murray injury, get into that. It'll be like a two-part first segment. I'll talk about Lamarcus Aldridge first, then I'll get into Jamal Murray and what that injury means for the Denver Nuggets and for Jamal Murray himself. We'll talk about that first. Then the second segment, I just want to say I am sorry to Russell Westbrook. Like, my goodness, what this man is doing right now is absolutely incredible. I mean, he's got that skill. I knew he had it in him, but it's like, still to just watch it, to see what this man is producing is just absolutely ridiculous. And then also I want to talk about Steph Curry being on an absolute another level over these past couple games. It's going to be another two-part segment, talk about both of those guys during that segment. And third segment, we're going to talk about the Atlanta Hawks, and are they actually for real? Are they really competing now? Is this a fluke? I want to get into that in that third segment. And then last, I want to talk about the top 10 sixth men of the year this season. It's not really much of a race this year, since we know Jordan Clarkson has just been absolutely on fire for this entire season, and he's pretty much run away with that award. But there are still a lot of great sixth men that have performed at a high level this season, and we're going to be talking about all of those in that last segment, so make sure you stick around for that. So without further ado, let's just get started with that kind of troubling news of Lamarcus Aldridge retiring from the NBA due to some infrequent heart beats that he was feeling, irregular heartbeats, I should say, during a game that he played. I forgot what game it was, but that's some scary news, man. You're playing a game and you can just feel it in yourself that there's something wrong. And he even said in the statement that he came out with that he felt it get worse as the game was going on, and that is a scary, scary thought. Like, we've had scares like that in the past with, guys like Chris Bosh who had blood clots, and I know this might not be the same situation. I'm sure he's been checked out, and there's no, reports of him actually having blood clots. Of course, this is still kind of early. This happened literally a day ago, so anything can happen. He can obviously get diagnosed, but I mean, obviously, we're hoping for anything but that, and that he's healthy. But obviously, he's happy with his decision to move on from the NBA, and I honestly got to appreciate. We all have to appreciate the kind of decision he had to make there to put family and his health first instead of basketball, which in his statement he said, he was going to do that instead of putting basketball first, which he has done for his entire life, which, you understand. I mean, this guy has poured his heart and soul into that game. He's become one of the best players in the league for so many years, and now he's got to step away because of a troubling heart condition that he might have. So, in the end, I always will appreciate what Lamarcus Aldridge brought to this game. Just his length, his shooting ability, just obviously what he did for the communities in Portland and wherever else he went. But man, I mean, the man had a really, really great career. And I know now there's a discussion of whether he is a Hall of Famer, which I guess I'll get to later on. But I just want to talk about just what he's brought to this league. The kind of career he had. I mean, he comes in to Portland in 2006, second overall pick, and I mean, he lived up to that. I mean, he could have easily been the first pick. I mean, he obviously outshined that man. Andrea Bargnani was the first overall pick in that 2006 draft, and obviously he, blew him out of the water. And if you look at that draft, honestly, it was kind of soft because you go the next guys after that. You got Adam Morrison, Tyrese Thomas, Sheldon Williams, Brandon Roy was good, but that's crazy how Brandon Roy and him were in the same draft, both selected by different teams, and then Lamarcus Aldridge and him both get to both end up playing together in Portland, and those are some great years. You had Rudy Gay in there, JJ Redick, man, but this was a pretty weak draft. I mean, you had Rajon Rondo in there, Kyle Lowry. All right, gets a little bit better, as you go down. But, I mean, PJ Tucker. But whatever, I'm getting off topic. Regardless, Lamarcus Aldridge was the get in that draft. Chicago made the pick, but ended up sending him to Portland, and he ended up playing most of his career there. He played, 8 seasons there? If I'm not mistaken, 9 seasons. Yeah, he played 9 seasons in Portland, gave them some incredible years, averaged 19.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, 2 assists, a block, almost a steal a game. I mean, the man was a bucket. You just look, I mean, he barely had, after his first year in the league, where obviously, any rookie struggles, he averaged 9 points, 5 rebounds, 1.2 blocks. So he, gave you that presence down low, into a guy that was averaging in the upper teens, 18 points a game for the next 3 seasons, and then catapulted to 20 points a game and becoming a perennial all-star during his last 4 years in Portland and then in San Antonio as well. It's just, and honestly, for myself, I've always kind of looked up to a player like Lamarcus Aldridge because I played basketball as I was younger. I mean, I love the game and I've always wanted to play it, and I did for a long time as I was young. And for me, I was always a much bigger player than a lot of other people, not tall length-wise, just like my body. I was always a bigger player. So they'd always play me as a big man, but I also had a shooting touch. So I always like to mirror my game to guys like Lamarcus Aldridge, Chris Bosh, Dirk, guys like that can, that were big players but also shot the ball. So Lamarcus Aldridge is one of those guys I always looked up to and always looked up to his game. And he always seemed like a, very well-mannered guy. He was never, super cocky. He was, never anything out of the ordinary. He was just a really good player, humble, and he just went to work every day. And you got to appreciate those type of players in the league. But, man, it's just for this to happen to him now in a season where he can finally compete for a title, because you can easily say that every single season that he's played, he never really competed for a title. Those years in Portland, they were, solid. Obviously when he had Brandon Roy, Damian Lillard came in towards the back end of his time there. And, they just never really, were contenders for the title. And even his years in San Antonio, he kind of came in after that Big Three era. He was there with Kawhi, and they never really gelled 100%. And, he just never really competed for a title. But this season, he was going to. Brooklyn Nets are considered favorites. He was going to play a major role on that team. They were already starting him, and he was playing well. So this was going to be that season for him to really finally compete for a title, get deep in a playoff series and really show, what he's all about. But unfortunately, this hit at probably the worst time. But honestly, the fact that happened and he was still willing to, put his health and his family in front of him is even, more incredible to even think of. Like a guy who he could have easily decided, no, I can push it. Like there's only about 20 games left in this season. Then we got the postseason. Maybe they'll just, put me on restricted minutes. I can do that. But no, he decided family first, health first, I'm out. And you got to, really look at that and be like, man, that had to have been probably the toughest decision that man has ever made in his entire life. And for him to do that, that takes a lot. That takes a lot. And it honestly makes me appreciate and love the player that is Lamarcus Aldridge even more. So, I mean, it's with a heavy heart to see him go. And even though, yes, I remember when I was talking about him, and Blake Griffin joining the Nets a couple episodes ago, I was a little salty because he was going to join the Heat and he didn't. But in the long run, it's, you appreciate the player. You hope everything is good with him and his health, and in the end, it is what it is. He still played a long time in this league. He had 15 seasons in this league, 15 high level seasons. I mean, the man made 7 All-Stars, right? Yeah, 7 All-Stars. He was in the All-NBA 5 times. So, I mean, this man was one of the best players in the league for a long time. And honestly, in my opinion, he's one of the best post-fade players in the league ever. Like, it always felt like, especially during those prime Portland years, there was nothing you can do to stop that length when he takes that, back shoulder fadeaway on the baseline and just cash money every time. And those pick and pops, oh, forget about it, man. That was his bread and butter. Lamarcus Aldridge, I mean, you couldn't, you couldn't stay off him. You had to be on his hip in order to make sure that mid-range wouldn't go down. And even then, it wasn't guaranteed. That's how good Lamarcus Aldridge was. And, I mean, people don't really think about it too much because he never really played for a contender. He wasn't one of those players that he did make that move to the San Antonio Spurs, but it just never really worked out. Like they were okay, they were good. Obviously, Kawhi was still kind of developing into that superstar that he is right now, but he never really contended for that title. So obviously, it sucks that his career ends now, but still, you appreciate what he brought to the league, and just the kind of person he is. Now, when we go and talk about Hall of Fame, that is a difficult discussion because he. Obviously, a big thing that goes into those discussions is, what did he do in the grand scheme of things? Like, did he, contend for titles? That's a big one. That's obviously a really big discussion there. Like, did he contend for titles? And I've already said he did not. His team was decent during those Portland years, but they weren't title contenders. Even San Antonio Spurs, they were not title contenders. Now, was he a great player? Absolutely. 7-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA second team, 3-time All-NBA third team. So that means he was one of the top 6 forwards in the league for 5 years. And those years were pretty close together. Like, it was from 2011 was his first third team, and then he had a 2014 third team selection, and then 2015 second team. His last All-NBA selection was in 2018, which was a second team All-NBA selection. So, I mean, this man went out on a, really high note, was a great player for so many years. It's tough, man, because if you're not, if it's like spectacle, or what is it? skeptical, is that the word? That a guy like Chris Bosh makes it into the Hall of Fame. Like he's on the ends, even though I think he should absolutely make it. 2-time champ. I'm not going to go into it, but, I think Chris Bosh should absolutely make it into Hall of Fame. So I'm kind of, Lamarcus Aldridge is the type of player where it's like, I just don't think he did enough to warrant a Hall of Fame selection. I mean, it's possible. I mean, he was a great player. I mean, averaged almost 20 points, 9 rebounds for his career. And he made 5 All-NBA selections, so that's big. 7-time All-Star, that's also pretty good. But other than that, he didn't really do much else. Obviously, you can talk about the teams around the team, the teammates around him. Like, did he have enough to really compete? But in the end, he didn't. I don't even think he made it past the semifinals. Like, I know he never made it past the semifinals. That was pretty much what happened there. Like, let's see, in 20, he first round, the first 3 years he made it to the playoffs. He made it to the second round once. Did he make it to I think he might have made it to the Western Conference Finals with San Antonio in 2016. Am I mistaken here? I think I'm not mistaken. I think I'm right on that. Let me check that out. Yeah, because they were the second seed that year. So yeah, they were contenders that year. I'm talking out of I can't talk about it, but they did lose 4-0 to the Golden State Warriors in that conference final. So yes, he did make it to a conference finals once, and he did pretty well. I mean, he had 28 points in that game 1 loss when they lost by 2 points. But then obviously they got blown out from that point on by the Golden State Warriors, who were on their way to a championship. So, that was his only really bad. That was his best run in the playoffs. So I don't know. I just don't see it. I don't see him becoming a Hall of Famer because that's an exclusive club. It's not me bashing on Lamarcus Aldridge. It's just the reality of it. It's not easy to make it into the Hall of Fame, even you being a great player like Lamarcus Aldridge was throughout his entire career. So I'm going to go no on that and just appreciate the player that he was, man. And I hope him happiness in his retirement and, just thank you for everything you did. So now let's move on to Jamal Murray and the devastating torn ACL injury that he's just been diagnosed with. I mean, it is a tough thing to watch, man. I've seen that replay a couple times, and it hurts me every single time. Jamal Murray, 24 years old, one of the best young players in the league, averaging 21 points a game, 4 rebounds, almost 5 assists, on 48% shooting, 41% from 3. I mean, he is one of those great young players in the league, and we just lost a good one. We lost someone who's, obviously you feel for the Nuggets and the situation they're in now, but of course you feel first and foremost for Jamal Murray and the battle he's going to be going through right now. Of course, you hope him for hope everything is going to go well. You hope he comes back stronger, which, I have no doubt in my mind he is going to come back and still be one of the best young guards in the NBA. The only thing that sucks is that, yes, he's obviously out for all of this season, but with apparently the quick turnaround that's going to be going on for next season, he might actually be out for most of next season as well. So that is a huge blow for him. I mean, obviously right now he's just going to be focusing on, rehab, getting his... I'm pretty sure. I don't know if there is a surgery for torn ACLs. I'm not a doctor, obviously, so I'm not 100% certain on all those things. But I do know there's going to be a very long recovery time for Jamal Murray, at least a year. And I hope nothing but the best for him. But when you really think about the player that he is, I mean, a microwave. The man can score in bunches and just absolutely take a team into a win with his scoring ability and really his all-around gameplay. Because, I mean, his ability to, grab rebounds at 6'3", his playmaking has obviously evolved as his career has gone on. I think he's actually, over the past 3 seasons, he's averaged 4.8 assists exact, like literally. His points have gone up. His field goal percentage has increased every single year. Well, at least over the past 3 years it has. And he's just improving. He gets better and better as his career has gone on. So this is going to be a huge blow for him. And, of course, for the Denver Nuggets, who lose easily their second best player. But when you really think about Denver as a whole, this can actually open up a lot of things for them. In the end, in my opinion, they're not competing for a title this year. That's in my opinion, out of the question. Like, they're a 4th seed, 35-20. They're having a great season, but this absolutely hurts their chances. To go up against guys like the Lakers with LeBron and AD without probably your best outside scoring threat, it really hinders their ability to compete in a 7-game series. However, I do think this is not a blessing in disguise, nothing like that. This obviously is, a very tough time for the Denver Nuggets, obviously. Anybody loses their second best player and a young, really good up-and-coming player, it's going to hurt. But I honestly think this will open up some time for a guy like Michael Porter Jr., who I just felt firsthand. My Miami Heat just lost to them by about 15 points. They just absolutely destroyed us. And a lot of that had to do with Michael Porter Jr. absolutely killing us. I mean, the man could not miss. So I absolutely believe that this is going to open up a big-time chance for Michael Porter Jr. to really develop his game and take that next step in his career. Because, I mean, the man was doing everything. Dribble pull-ups from the three-point line, going in, taking on a smaller opponent and using his length to his advantage. I mean, the man's 6'10", 218. I mean, he's got a body. So I feel like this is going to do a lot of things for him and really catapult him into that, third best player discussion, because he kind of already is. But the distance between him and Jamal Murray is a little bit more than him and like a Will Barton, who is, in my opinion, considered the 4th best player on this team because of Michael Porter Jr.'s inconsistencies throughout this season. But he's still having an incredible year. I mean, I go and look at his numbers, and he's averaging 17.5 points, 7.8 rebounds, and he's giving you a little bit on the, I don't know, never mind. Defensive, I guess a little bit on the defensive end. About a block a game, 0.6 steals. But yeah, I think this will open up a lot of things for Michael Porter Jr. and will help him in his development and actually becoming that third player alongside Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic to really form like a big three. I really feel like that's what this is going to do, because he's going to have to take more shots and he's going to be, tasked and really, holding a big time burden in that scoring department. So in the end, this obviously still hurts. Jamal Murray is an incredible player. I still feel like he's going to come back stronger when he comes back from this injury because he is the kind of guy that works and he doesn't stop working. So I honestly feel like Jamal Murray is for sure going to come back, with a vengeance after he comes back from this injury. You're going to have obviously Nikola Jokic there still being, almost pretty much an MVP this season. And there's no reason to think he's not going to keep on doing that at the age of 25. Like, Jokic is 25. Like, you look at that young core there. Murray at 23 might be coming back from this injury, to almost at 25 years old. But still, 25 Jamal Murray. You'd have a 27-year-old Jokic, a 24-year-old Michael Porter Jr. You got the makings of, a dynasty here, in my opinion, because, I mean, it obviously all starts with Jokic. I mean, the guy is one of the best players to ever play the game already at the age of 25. Jamal Murray can, hopefully he can come back from the injury strong and just as good as he was and continue to get better. But it's also about that development of Michael Porter Jr. That's a huge thing for them. So, it hurts. I send my wishes to Jamal Murray and hope that everything turns out well during his recovery and his rehab. But in the end, I still feel like the Denver Nuggets are going to be in a good place. And they're still going to be one of the best teams in the NBA. Because, Jokic, Porter Jr., Barton, they still got some great players. Aaron Gordon, I didn't even talk about. 10 games with the team, and he's playing really well. And also another player that this will help in his development because he's going to be asked to handle the ball a lot more. It's going to be Monty Morris. more often coming off the bench for them, but still averaging 10 points, almost 3 assists, 2 rebounds. It gives you some decent defense. I think this is going to be big for Monte Morris as well, and he's also pretty young, 25 years old, so you got a lot of good young players here, and I feel like the Denver Nuggets are going to be just fine. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, we're going to be talking about how sorry I am to Russell Westbrook and Steph Curry being on an absolute another level over the past few games, and honestly for this entire season. We're going to get into those players' incredible runs right after this.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. If you missed the last segment, we talked about Lamarcus Aldridge announcing his retirement from the NBA, and we also talked about that gruesome Jamal Murray injury. And, I went into, what it means for the Nets, what it means for the Denver Nuggets. So if you guys want to check that out, please go ahead and do so. Now, we're going to be talking about Westbrook and Steph Curry playing on an absolute another level over the past for Westbrook, it's been like the past few weeks, almost 2 months now. And for Curry, after coming back from his injury, he has just been absolutely killing it these last, 9 games now. We're going to be talking about this run of, this stretch for these two incredible players. And I also want to just issue an apology to Russell Westbrook, because when I did my top 10 point guards in the league, I left him out of it. I left him out of it because at that point in the season, I saw an inefficient point guard that couldn't help his team win games, and I was dead wrong. This man has been an absolute monster. He is the triple-double king. No doubt in my mind, I feel like he's going to pass the all-time record, especially with this stretch that he has been on, where he is, I believe it's been like, 6 straight games, and 10 of his last 11. Am I wrong there? I'm pretty sure 10 of his last 11 games have been triple doubles. I mean, what? Who does that? There's nobody in the NBA now. Even over the past, I don't even think even Oscar Robertson was doing something like this. This man is, close to averaging a triple-double every single season that he has played now. And the one game that really, pops out to me is that 35-point, 21-assist, 14-rebound game he had against the Indiana Pacers, where they won that game. He was a +8. I mean, that's one of the things I look at the most. I love looking at the plus minuses. I feel like that really shows, what your impact is on the floor when you're out there. Is your team getting outscored, or is your team outscoring the other team? And for the most part, it's still been very negative for Russell Westbrook. I mean, he was a -29 against the Detroit Pistons, -22 against the Dallas Mavericks, -28 against the Phoenix Suns. So he's had some pretty bad games in that regard. Even -18 against the Knicks in one of those games. But I'm putting that all aside here. Like, I look at that a lot. Like, I literally just mentioned it now when I'm trying to praise him. But you look at the past 25 games from Russell Westbrook. So this is like dating back to like late February. And this man has averaged 23 points a game, 23.4 to be exact, almost 12 rebounds, just under 12 assists, 1.7 steals, and that's on 45% shooting. Obviously, that three-point shooting is still, abysmal, 32%. Free throw percentage, that has been a huge shocker to me, 64% from the free throw line. But it's just, those numbers are massive. And when I look at my top 10 point guards, I put Jamal Murray 10, and now, it's still close because Jamal Murray's like super efficient. Obviously, he's also a pretty decent defender. He does a lot for them when he's on the court, and they don't do so well when he's off the court. And he just does so much for that team. But my God, like, how can I deny Russell Westbrook a top 10 spot now? Like, maybe when I really think about it, and now when I like Trae Young, like maybe, like, but I still can't even think about dropping Trae Young like down like outside the top 10. It's so tough. There's so many great point guards in the league, but you look at Russell Westbrook's season overall, 21.8 points per game, just under 11 rebounds, just under 11 assists. On not great shooting averages, but still, it's just, you cannot deny those ridiculous numbers. The man is just, I don't want to say stat padding, but he's a monster. He is an absolute monster. He is doing this pretty much every single night. I just wanted to talk about this recent stretch of play where he is just dominated. Like, he has put up, let's see, I'm gonna go back to like the last, let's say 10 games. The ones where he's gone on that stretch where he's gotten, the 10 triple-doubles in 11 nights. So the last 11 games, man is averaging 23 points, 14 rebounds. 14 rebounds over the last 11 games. Almost 13 assists. Like, I cannot state it enough that is just, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Like, the fact that he's scoring buckets, the field goal percentage is decent, 46% from the field. Obviously, like I said, three-point shooting and free throw percentage, it's not there. But he's still giving you, like, decent shooting, 46%. That's not bad. If you're telling me you're giving me triple-doubles every night and shooting 46% from the field, like, I'll take that any day of the week. Because he doesn't need to space the floor to be effective. He can literally drive by anyone with his athleticism. The man is an absolute dog. He does not care about contact. He will go right through it. And he's just so much fun to watch. We are incredibly lucky that we're living through this era of basketball where we're watching a man just absolutely dominate every single night. Like 10 triple doubles in 11 games. Like, who in the NBA can do that? Realistically, like, who else in the NBA can put up these absolutely godlike numbers in an 11-game stretch? I'm really trying to think about it, and like, there's only a couple people that really come to mind, like maybe a Ben Simmons, but like not 22 points. I wouldn't expect 22 points from him. I can definitely see the rebound and assist if he's really feeling it. LeBron James, I just don't see that from him. Like, LeBron James is not like one of those guys that just goes out and just like puts out that all-out hustle that Russell Westbrook does every single night. Like, you just don't see that from LeBron James. Like, he methodically, can defeat you and just make you look really, dumb. Like, that's what LeBron does. He's the smartest. He's one of the smartest players to ever play the game. But Russell Westbrook is one of the most dominant, monstrous, like, athletic players to ever play this game. And he's putting that on display right now. I really can't say it enough. It's just so absolutely incredible. And then I look at, like, what the Washington Wizards have done through this stretch. And they've gone 6-5. They're 500 in this stretch where he's getting triple doubles on a nightly basis. And I know that minus 29 against Detroit, the minus 22 against Dallas, and minus 28 against Phoenix Suns was in this stretch. So yes, it's not. And when you look at the overall plus minuses, it's it's, in that it ends up averaging out to negative like 3. And it's, so obviously I look at that and it's like, he's putting up nasty numbers, but it's just like can you, impact I understand he's not in a great team though. Washington have been incredibly inconsistent and have not really put it all together this season. But you look at that and it's just incredible. It really is. And he's got that ability to, to shoot threes every now and then. He had this one stretch against Indiana and Charlotte where he scored 4 3-pointers in back-to-back games on pretty solid averages. But then, of course, it all, balances out. He goes 1 for 6, 0 for 3, 1 for 5 the next 3 games. He went 3 for 3 the night after that, but it's, he's obviously very inconsistent. You can't rely on him to shoot from the outside. He does shoot the ball to keep defenses honest a little bit, but they're not threatened by him doing that from the outside. And the one thing that really bothers me, though, is that he can go 4 for 4, 9 for 11 from the free throw line some games, but then he goes 1 for 6, 5 for 8, 4 for 6 twice, 3 for 5. It's super inconsistent from there as well. And I guess that's kind of the MO of Russell Westbrook, at least towards the back end of his career, where he just can't consistently shoot the ball. But, it's really incredible when you consider, he's 32 years right now. Yeah, he's 32 years old right now. And he still has that incredible ability to pass the ball, rebound like an animal, and just absolutely out-hustle anybody. And you got to appreciate that. In the grand scheme of things, you got to appreciate the way he plays the game. And you got to appreciate what he brings to this game. Just someone, you probably aren't going to see this again for a long, long time. A guy that can dominate on a nightly basis like this and get triple-doubles and average a triple-double for a full season. I know Luka Doncic is almost there. Man's averaging 9 assists, 8 boards. So I know he's getting there, but he doesn't do it at the same veracity and dominance that Russell Westbrook does. Because obviously, Luka Doncic does not have the same athleticism that Russell Westbrook does. He's one of the most athletic, if not the most athletic point guard that we have ever seen play the game. And we are witnessing one of his best stretches right now, everybody. So if you have a chance, access to a Washington Wizards game, please go and do so. I mean, the guy is absolutely killing it. He is one of the best point guards in the league. And I probably would, if I had done a top 10 point guards list right now, it would be very, very difficult to keep Russell Westbrook off this list. I'd probably drop Jamal Murray, maybe Trae Young. I mean, I just don't see him better than a guy like Ben Simmons. Mike Conley, God, now I feel like I put Mike Conley so high. I put him 7, but it's just the way he's helps that Utah Jazz team be one of the best in the NBA right now with his shooting numbers, his ability to pass the ball. But it's just, man, it's tough. It's really tough. But I would absolutely see a Russell Westbrook on my top 10 list. Maybe I do one at the end of the season and just do a top 10 point guard list for the whole 2020 season, 2020-21 season. But yeah, at the moment I'm just enjoying greatness right now, and this guy is the epitome of that at the moment. So next, let's go to Steph Curry and just talk about this ridiculous recent stretch of games where he missed 5 games in a row. He was inactive for 1, didn't play the other 5. Obviously, the Warriors, were really bad in that stretch. But oh man, and I was actually looking at that wrong for Russell Westbrook. Hold on, let me go back to that. What was he? Yeah, okay. He was in those games. My bad, guys. All right, so in those Detroit, Dallas, and Phoenix games where I said that he was minus 29, minus 22, and minus 28, that was actually the overall game score. That was the game score. He was actually minus 23, minus 19, minus 21. So not as bad, but still pretty bad. So whatever. I just wanted to correct myself there. Now let's go back to Steph Curry, where he missed those 5 games. And then he comes back and he just starts absolutely dominating. I mean, the man hasn't put up less than 30 points since he's returned. He missed a game in between that, but you look at the last 9 games that he's played. The man is averaging 38 points a game, 6 rebounds, almost 5 assists, just under a steal a game, and on the most ridiculous averages you will see from a man shooting as much as he is, almost 55% from the field, 47% from 3 on 13.5 3-point attempts a game. 13.5 3-point attempts a game. Think about that. He's getting to the free throw line 8 times a game, making it at 92% of the time. Like, the man is an absolute bucket, but then he still makes like so well. He's a +8, like an average of +8, like while he's there. He hasn't gone minus in any of the, never mind. He went -16 in a game against the Washington Wizards. Of course, we just finished talking about Russell Westbrook, so that just seems destined there. But, I mean, you just look at these games. He put up 32, 6, and 5 against the Chicago Bulls. Against the Heat, he went 36, 11, and 3. And the first number I'm giving you guys is the rebounds and then the assists. Obviously, 36, that's his points. 37, 5, and 2 against the Atlanta Hawks. 41, 6, and 4 against the Milwaukee Bucks. 32, 6, and 4, or 6 and 5 against the Washington Wizards. And then it just goes ridiculous. 38, 8, and 5 against the Houston Rockets. 53 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists in the game against the Denver Nuggets. 42 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists against the OKC Thunder. And 33 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, I mean, it's just, it's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. And then on top of that, he goes for 8 3-point makes, 8 3-point makes against the Houston Rockets, 10 against the Denver Nuggets, 11 against the OKC Thunder. 8, 10, like, that man put up 30, right? Am I getting this right? 21. I was about to go off, like way off. 29. The man has made 29 3-pointers in a 3-game stretch. 29 in 3 games. Like, there is absolutely no question that this man is the greatest 3-point shooter of all time. To be able to do it in the variety of ways that he does. I mean, of course, you got the spot ups, but then you got the off the pick and rolls, the isolation dribble pull ups. Like, he's just an absolute bucket. The man can do it however you need him to, man. And then it's crazy what he means to this team. Over in that 6-game stretch where he missed a couple games, like obviously there were 5 in a row, but then he missed that Toronto game. They went, 1-5 and lost heavy to the Toronto Raptors by 53 points. I still can't believe that happened. And then he comes back and they go 5-2. So I mean, the guy is just incredible. It's absolutely surreal to think that he can still take it up and not. Like, I was actually looking at some Steph Curry highlights the other day, and it was a lot of his like earlier years, like when that dynasty was just starting. He was just absolutely just saucing everybody. His speed was just crazy, and I was just thinking, like, I mean, I just don't see it like that anymore. Like, I don't see him, having that incredible speed that he obviously still has the handles, obviously the shooting ability, but it's just. I just felt like there was like a different style of play to him. But like this stretch has just absolutely made me look like an idiot in that part because, I mean, the guy still has it. I mean, he's 33? No, he's 33 years old now. Oh, man, that's another thing that gets me like really sad. You got Russell Westbrook at 32, Curry at 33. I mean, these guys are already on the wrong side of 30 years old. Like, we're not going to get to see them play basketball for that much longer. Like, there's only like maybe 4 or 5 more, maybe. That's a big if. 4 or 5 more years of these guys playing. And at a high level, I mean, who knows? I mean, Steph Curry, I don't want to put any kind of cap on him. I don't think he's going to go into the high 30s playing like this, where he's averaging 30 points, 5.5 rebounds, 6 assists. I mean, the man can do it all and on ridiculous averages. I mean, I can say it over and over again. He's so close to getting in that 50, 40, 90 club. I mean, he's averaging, 48.9% from the field goal, from the field, I should say. And I don't think he's going to get there. He's got to have some crazy games where he's shooting this stretch is certainly helping him in that regard. I mean, the man is just absolutely putting in whatever he puts up. So it's just, but I still don't expect him to shoot that well over the final, I think it's 17 games of the season left to be able to really get him into that 50, 40, 90 club. But he is very, very close. He's going to be in that 49. What is it? Oh, no, that was Chris Middleton last year. He hit 50 field goal percentage. He was 39% from the three-point line, and then he hit 90 from free throw range. So it's the 50, 39, 90 club. But, yeah, no. It's just, man, I'm still just always so astounded by this man's level of play. And I have a friend who's a huge Golden State Warriors fan. The guy's, obviously now he's, kind of in the dark right now because, actually he has a kid. So it's just, he's obviously a bit busy. But he doesn't really come to me about that Golden State Warrior stuff anymore because obviously they're not going through the best stretch, Klay Thompson out. But I know for a fact he is enjoying the heck out of this ridiculous run from Steph Curry, from Chef Curry, I should say, and for good reason. I mean, the man is one of the best point guards to ever play the game. I know for sure I'm going to do a top 10 like that of the top point guards of all time, of each position, of course. And I might do an all-time top 10. Who are the greatest players of all time? And, of course, that is such an objective list. Anybody can be there. But no doubt in my mind, Steph Curry is going to be on that top 10 point guard list of all time. Probably going to be, I don't want to be spoiled. I'm not going to do no spoilers. But he's going to be high up there on that list. But, yeah, just appreciate it, guys. Appreciate what you're getting from Steph Curry every single night. And same thing, like I said, for the Washington Wizards. If you have a chance to go watch a Golden State Warriors game, online or whatever, do it, man. This guy is putting on a show, and we are very lucky to be there, be here for that. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around because when I come back, I'm going to talk about whether the Atlanta Hawks are for real or not. We're going to get into their recent stretch of games. See, I did choose the Atlanta Hawks as one of the hottest teams in the second half. I was expecting that. But are they actual, contenders, or are they just flukes for this season? That's what we're going to get into right after this.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. If you missed the last segment, we talked about Russell Westbrook and Steph Curry's incredible run of play lately. Talked about it's just absolutely ridiculous what they're doing right now. So if you guys have not heard it, please go ahead and do so. But now we're going to be talking about the Atlanta Hawks. They have been one of the hottest teams in the NBA of late. And we're going to be talking about are they for real right now? Are they actual contenders? Are they really the fourth best team in the Eastern Conference right now. We're going to be getting into all that. I'm going to talk about the team, what they've been doing so far this season, and at the end, I'm going to talk about whether their chances are legit to really upset one of the big three in the Eastern Conference. So let's get started with just, what are the Atlanta Hawks doing right now? At the moment, they're 30-26, which is good for fourth in the Eastern Conference. We know that there is a huge disparity between the top three, which are the Brooklyn Nets, Philadelphia 76ers, Milwaukee Bucks, and the rest of the Eastern Conference. But right now, the Atlanta Hawks seem to be making a bit of a run at the moment. They are tied with Boston for the fourth seed, but they are ahead of them, I'm assuming, because they've got the head-to-head win right there. But then after that, it kind of drops off. I mean, you got New York, Miami, Charlotte, which obviously lost LaMelo, has lost Gordon Hayward, so they're expected to drop even more. Indiana, and then obviously it drops even more to Chicago, Toronto, Washington. So are the Atlanta Hawks for real? Now, I look at their team overall, and they have a really, really good collection of players. I mean, you look at the top of this team, of course, it always starts with Trae Young. Then you got Clint Capella, John Collins, which is a very dominant, athletic front court. You got, DeAndre Hunter, who has been great for them this season, but he is at the moment out. He has been dealing with a lot of injuries this season. And overall, this team is dealing with injuries throughout their roster. Chris Dunn, which was a guy who was supposed to come in as a very solid backup option to Trae Young, has been out for almost a month now. It has been announced that he's going to be returning to practice, so they might be getting him back soon, which would be great to get him for this last final stretch before the playoffs start. John Collins is out. Danilo Gallinari is day-to-day. Hunter, Cam Reddish have been dealing with injuries throughout this season. But, it's just, you look at the team overall, and I honestly think this is a very, very good team. Of course, when you talk about the scoring from this team, it's obviously Trae Young. The man's averaging 25 points a game, almost 10 assists a game, so pretty much a huge chunk of that offense is Trae Young. You can look at John Collins as well, who's putting up 18 points a game, which is good for second on the team. DeAndre Hunter, if he can come back healthy, is a very solid third option, especially this season. He's improved his three-point shooting, and he's improved his efficiency overall. He's shooting over 50% from the field, and for a second-year player, that's really good. And then he always gives you that, defensive hustle. That's what he came into the league with, and that's what he's been, giving them every single night. And then, of course, you look at Clint Capella, and that man is one of the best centers in the NBA right now. 15 points a game, 14 rebounds to lead the league, 2.2 blocks. So he's pretty much doing everything you need from a big man down low. And then you trickle down to the rest of the roster. Bogdan Bogdanovic has been very solid. Lou Williams getting added to that bench unit has been a huge addition. Man is averaging double digits for the Hawks so far. You got Danilo Gallinari, one of the best sixth men in the league this year. Let's see, Tony Snell. After that, it kind of takes a little bit of a dip, but they still got three guys that they can easily go to. You also got to mention Kevin Huerter. He's having kind of a down year, almost 12 points a game, 3.6 assists, 3.3 rebounds, 1.1 steals is pretty solid, but it's just he's known as a knockdown shooter, 36% from the field. That's not going to really cut it. You also got to look at Trae Young's efficiency. It really just hasn't been there this season. 43% from the field, under 36% from three. You expect those to be a bit higher than that. So obviously Trae Young has not been efficient, but he's still getting it done with 25 points a game and almost 10 assists. You got to look at that. But of course, when you talk about Trae Young's offense, you got to mention his defense as well, which is possibly the worst in the entire league. I mean, he's always going to have trouble because of his size. He's just not a very big player. He's not even average size. So obviously he's always going to have trouble when a team is switching and he gets caught on a big player. That's always going to be a mismatch. And even against other guards, it's usually a mismatch because he can't keep up with them. He doesn't have great defensive awareness, and that hurts this Atlanta Hawks team. You look at that's why they picked up guys like Rondo and Chris Dunn, guys who can really defend at that point of attack position, because Trae Young can't. So now I look at the team overall and what they're doing in terms of their defense and offensive rating. Offensively, as you'd expect from this Hawks team with Trae Young running the show, they're a top 10 offense, 115.4 in the offensive rating, so it's per 100 possessions. But defensively, it's also what you would expect. 24th in the league, 113.5 points allowed per 100 possessions. They do have a net rating that's top 10 as well, plus 1.9, so their offense is good enough to get them out of most situations, which is what it's been so far this season. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, you need a good defensive team to really, make a mark in the playoffs. And if Atlanta Hawks, which I honestly, with this roster, I guess DeAndre Hunter would certainly help some, as well as Cam Reddish, if they can be healthy by the playoffs come. I have no doubt in my mind that they can certainly get past a first-round series. It will still be tough depending on their matchup. Like if they take on a Boston Celtics team and Tatum and Jaylen Brown just absolutely, tear it up, then there can definitely be a first-round exit there. But the Atlanta Hawks have showed this season that they can win in multiple ways, especially with Nate McMillan there. The man has played 22 games, 12 less than what Lloyd Pierce was, and he has already won more games. He has been incredible for that team. He has instilled a different type of system there. And to do it mid-season and for them to play this well already under him is extremely impressive. He's not going to get, much talk with, in terms of what the Coach of the Year award, because obviously he hasn't really coached that many games. But you still got to just look at that stretch since, April 1st, where they have won, 7 of their last 9 games. They've been absolutely killing it. And it's pretty good wins. I mean, they beat the Spurs in double overtime. They beat the Pelicans, the Warriors, the Pelicans again, the Bulls, Hornets, and Raptors. Like, those are all teams that, the Western Conference teams is a little bit difficult. They just recently lost to the Bucks by 11 points. That's always a tough game. The Bucks are a very tough team. But when you consider, just what the Hawks are, they're a firecracker offensive team. In those wins, they had 134 points against the San Antonio Spurs in that double overtime game, 126 against the Pelicans, 117 against the Warriors, 123 against the Pelicans again, 120 against the Bulls. And then they did have some pretty gritty wins there against the Hornets and the Raptors, where they outscored them 105-101 against the Hornets and 108-103 against the Raptors. So they can still also win gritty games, which is obviously good to see. You want to see them win those type of games, and that can kind of tell you whether they're fit to really make it in the playoffs. And to me, the key to this whole thing working here in Atlanta is Clint Capella. Like, if he can absolutely dominate a series and do what he's been doing this entire season, being a double every single night, being a double threat, providing that rim protection for guys like Trae Young, who pretty much just letting guys go by him, and you obviously got Bogdanovich as well, Gallinari. Not a lot of good perimeter defenders there. You need Clint Capella and even John Collins to some degree to really provide that rim protection and size inside the paint, because you're going to be going up against guys like, let's say they make it to the second round and take on a team like the 76ers. Inside, he's going to have to deal with Joel Embiid. And that's going to be a huge task if he can find a way to somehow, not take him out of the series completely, because that's impossible. It's Joel Embiid. He's an MVP candidate. The man's an absolute monster. But, if you can at least hold him a little bit down to what he usually does, then they got a chance. Because then, of course, you also got Ben Simmons to worry about, and you're probably going to put a guy like DeAndre Hunter on him. And this all goes back to that, if he can be healthy. If he can be healthy coming into the playoffs, and obviously you don't want him coming back right when the playoffs start. You want him coming back, a couple games before, so we can get a rhythm. And he can, actually be that third scoring option for this team. And same thing with Cam Reddish. Like, he's also one of those guys who'll play very solid defense and also score the ball for you. So if they can get both of those guys back and playing at a high level, entering the playoffs, they certainly have a chance in the first round. Obviously, when you talk second round, it gets so much harder, because especially against a team like the Brooklyn Nets, because with the with the Philadelphia 76ers, I actually feel like they match up pretty well against them. Like I said, Clint Capella against Joel Embiid. I feel like Clint Capella, provides a very strong presence inside the paint. Of course, not like Joel Embiid, but it's a pretty decent matchup. It's not like they're completely mismatched there. Then you got DeAndre Hunter who can match up against Ben Simmons and give him be a guy who can keep up with him and actually have that strength match as well. Cam Reddish. The only thing is that then Tobias Harris, who would guard him? You'd have John Collins on him, and that would be a tough matchup for John Collins because he's not that great on the perimeter defensively, and Tobias Harris has been great on the perimeter this season. He's able to go inside and really create things for his teammates and for himself. He's been a dog this season, so that would be a very difficult matchup for John Collins. But then Trae Young would probably be guarded by a guy like Ben Simmons on the other end, and that is where I feel like this series would probably get beat for the Atlanta Hawks. I just don't see Trae Young really being able to really score most of the buckets for this Atlanta Hawks team in a series like that where it's a grinded out game, and he's going to have to try to get buckets over the length of guys like Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, even Danny Green, who's a pretty solid defender. Honestly, maybe they might have Danny Green on him initially. But still, I think it'd be very tough for Trae Young to really carry the load offensively in a series like that. He would certainly need help from guys like John Collins and DeAndre Hunter, and of course Clint Capella as well, and even the other guys off the bench like Lou Williams, Bogdanovich, Gallinari. All of those guys need to play at a very high level for this team to really take it to that next level and actually compete against those top three teams. The Milwaukee Bucks, that's actually the one where I feel like or obviously Brooklyn Nets, that's the one where I feel like there would be a no contest. You got multiple ball handling wings and guards like James Harden. You got Kevin Durant, you got Kyrie Irving. Nobody would be able to keep up with them on that team. Who's Trae Young gonna guard? Like honestly, like they probably put him on Joe Harris, but even Joe Harris can go in a little bit and can finish pretty well. I just don't see anybody that they'd be able to hide Trae Young on in that team, and that's where this team is going to lose. Because in the end, you can only hide Trae Young so much, and in a 7-game series, there is absolutely no hiding a Trae Young. There's not, and that's where it always comes down to. Like at least with there's always those comparisons to Steph Curry. And I understand. I mean, no one has really shot the ball like Steph Curry, aside from, you got Damian Lillard, who's been doing it a lot lately, and for most of his career. I mean, Damian Lillard's obviously up there. But no young player has really come into the league and really had that same style of play as Steph Curry. But Trae Young is that guy. Like, he can come off those pick and rolls and shoot those deep threes. He's a sharpshooter. He's an incredible sharpshooter, a guy that can create off the dribble. And obviously his passing ability is the one that really pops out off the page because, there's guys that can shoot, but to shoot the way he does and pass the way he does, that's very rare in the NBA. But at least Steph Curry is at least a decent defender. Like I would say he's like an average defender because he can steal the ball pretty well. He does well on help coverages. So he does a lot of those little things that you need to help a team win, especially in the playoffs. Trae Young does not do those things. He does not do even a little bit of that. He's literally, like I said in the beginning, the worst defender in the NBA. And to have that guy as your main scorer, like obviously you're going to need him to play most of the minutes. It's going to be tough to really hide him and make, have a really good defense on the floor. So that's always what I go back to when I talk about this Atlanta Hawks team. It's hard to really see them taking it to that next level with Trae Young not being a factor on the defensive end, like being literally a no factor on that defensive end. And I'm not really worried about the way that they play because I know when it's in the playoffs it gets very slow. There's not a lot of fast breaks. That's very rare. It does not happen in the playoffs. It bogs down a lot. It's like running in the mud type stuff. So the Atlanta Hawks kind of have that in their favor because they do run a lot of half court. They have one of the worst paces in the league. They play very, very because they got a lot of big guys like John Collins and Clint Capella that can't really run the floor. And And obviously Trae Young works well when he, not really he can do fast breaks, but, when he's in that half-court setting and he gets those high pick and rolls and he can really work off that. That's where Trae Young is at his best. So for them, that's not really what I'm worried about. It's always comes back to that defense. Like, to be the 24th ranked defense in the league and to have to go up against, offensive juggernauts like the Brooklyn Nets, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Philadelphia 76ers, and even teams like the Boston Celtics, I just don't really see it being an issue. Like, now, I would have easily said the Miami Heat would have defeated the Atlanta Hawks coming into the season, even with those upgrades that they made. Now, I am disgusted as I talk right now because I just finished seeing the Heat lose to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Like, I'm literally disgusted saying those words because I am just so heated after watching that game. I don't even know how I'm talking to you guys right now. I don't even want to think about it. But now, looking at the way the Atlanta Hawks are playing, look at the way the Miami Heat are playing, I have no doubt in my mind that the Atlanta Hawks would win a series over the Miami Heat. And it pains me to say that because the Atlanta Hawks can score at a consistent rate. They can score. The Heat cannot. The Heat are a good defense at times, but their offense is so bad. Like, I look at that Heat offense, and I'm going to say they're probably they're 25 or lower, and they're 25th in the league, scoring 108 points a game. They're top 6 defense, but you need to score buckets, and they go through these stretches where they just can't score. That's why I think the Atlanta Hawks would actually have a very good chance against the Miami Heat, because they'd be able to score nonstop against them. There's nobody that can really stop a Trae Young on that team. I mean, obviously, you're hoping Victor Oladipo comes back healthy by the time that happens, but still, it's like I just don't see the Heat defeating the Atlanta Hawks. So I'm not being a homer here by saying that. I really don't believe it. The New York Knicks, I could see the Knicks defeating the Atlanta Hawks. It'd be a tough series, and you can probably see the Atlanta Hawks getting out of that as well. But the thing is, the Knicks have some very solid scoring. They're actually 22nd in the league. Not much better than the Heat. But the thing is, they have a guy that can really get buckets in a variety of ways. Like, for the Heat, they got Jimmy Butler, who you can plan for. Obviously, he's still going to get his. He's a superstar in this league, but he can't shoot the 3 ball. So if you pack the paint, especially for a team like the Atlanta Hawks, who have guys like Clint Capella, John Collins, you can pack the paint and force the Heat to really shoot the 3 ball, and not guys like, obviously, Robinson, Hero, even though Hero's been an absolute mess of late. But, you force a guy like maybe a Bam Adebayo to shoot those, mid-range shots that he's starting to hit more consistently, but you're still willing to let him take those. And then Jimmy Butler kind of going into an outside game instead of kind of getting inside. That size will certainly hurt the Miami Heat. And that's why I feel like they would lose. But the Knicks, they got a star on that team in Julius Randle, who can score the ball in so many different ways. You want him to score in the post, he can do that. You need him on fast breaks, he can do that as well. You need him to shoot a mid-range, kind of go isolation score. He's shown that to be, so true this season. And then the topper for that is his three-point shooting. Shooting over 40% from the three-point line. The man has been lights out from that range. And even a guy like RJ Barrett, he's also been shooting it well from the outside. I mean, just under 38%, which is, I would say, like league average, maybe a little above league average. But, still, it's, you got some very solid scores on that team. Obviously, losing Mitchell Robinson hurts in a big, big way. You don't got a big that can really match up against Clint Capella, even though Mitchell Robinson also really can't match up, equally to a Clint Capella. But Nerlens Noel has been underratedly good this season. Like, he has been very, very solid, averaging he's 5 points a game, 6 rebounds, 2.1 blocks, 1.1 steals. Man has been a defensive juggernaut for that team, adding, great rim protection, and I feel like that would certainly hurt the Atlanta Hawks, especially with, guys like Clint Capella loving to play inside, and obviously John Collins can shoot a bit, but, he also likes to work inside as well. So I feel like the Knicks can certainly pull off that series win against the Atlanta Hawks, but it would be very close. I would not be surprised if that kind of series goes to 7 games. Boston is the team that I feel like the Atlanta Hawks would have a lot of trouble with because they got guys on the outside that can, so many guys, Kemba Walker, Mark Smart, now Evan Fournier, along with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, of course. they got so many guys that can make it happen on the perimeter, and there's not enough guys that you can really hide. There's really nobody that you can hide Trae Young on there. Like, they would instantly, just look at those mismatches and go for him. And that's where, it always, comes down to, like I've said time and time again, can they hide Trae Young enough? And I just don't think they can. But again, they are a very, very good offensive team. They can score the lights out anytime they want. And I mean, you look at this, what was the stretch of play that they have left? Let's see, they had one of the easiest schedules left in the season. And they got Indiana, the Magic, the Knicks, the Heat coming up. And then they got kind of a tough stretch towards the end. They got the Bucks, 76ers twice, Trailblazers, Suns, Pacers. The last 4 games are actually pretty easy. They got Wizards twice, Magic, and then the Rockets. So that's going to actually a pretty easy last 4 games of the season. But they do got some tough games in between that. That'll really tell you what this team is all about. If they can continue the strong stretch of play, maybe get a win against one of those top teams like the Philadelphia, even though both those 76ers games are on the road. That is tough. But then you got the Bucks. It's going to be tough for them to win that, but still you got to expect at least one win there, just to prove that they can hang with one of those teams. But if they lose all those games, I don't know. I just don't see the Atlanta Hawks really posing a threat to one of those top 3 teams. I really don't. Like, if I had to choose one, if I really had to choose one that they could possibly beat, maybe it'd be the Milwaukee Bucks, because obviously Giannis works so well inside, and then you got that size of John Collins and Clint Capella that can really, guard the paint. Not saying that they would stop Giannis. I mean, that's something entirely, but they would certainly pose a threat to the Milwaukee Bucks with that, explosive scoring they got, even though they can certainly put Jrue Holiday on Trae Young and make life hell for him. I mean, Jrue Holiday, one of the most underrated players in the league and one of the most underrated defenders in this league. But I don't know. Just to answer this segment's question, are the Atlanta Hawks for real? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I do think they're officially putting themselves in, a playoff team in the Eastern Conference. That for sure. Because they got to hold on to John Collins during this offseason, but you got Trae Young, who's continuing to develop into obviously a great scorer and an excellent passer. I want him to be, like I think I've said it before, if he can just be a below average defender, you don't have to be a great defender, not even average, below average. He is right now worst in the league defensively. If he can be at least below average, this team has a chance to do a lot of things. And obviously, the development of Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter are going to, have a huge part in this team's future. And you're seeing great things from DeAndre Hunter. I feel like that's also a big key for this team. A guy who can guard at that wing position and be a third option offensively. I feel like that's going to be huge. And then, of course, you got to think about John Collins and can he really, play at that playoff intensity? They haven't played in the playoffs. The Atlanta Hawks, since getting Trae Young, John Collins, those guys have not experienced playoff basketball. And honestly, when you really look at who's in the playoffs, around them, a lot of them haven't either. Obviously the Boston Celtics, they have, but New York Knicks, they haven't. Charlotte, they haven't. So Atlanta certainly has a chance to make it into the second round, but if they get a matchup like the Boston Celtics, I feel like that's going to be probably a really, really bad matchup for them. And I can easily see them losing that series in 5 or 6 games. I don't see a sweep by any means because Atlanta can catch absolute fire on any given night. They got so many different guys that can score the ball. And of course, this is me assuming that everybody is healthy. Because there's no major injuries on this team. Right now they're dealing with some day-to-days. Some guys are going to be evaluated in a couple of weeks, in 2 weeks at most. So, there's no major injuries. Of course, Collins being out 7 to 10 days, going to get reevaluated in 7 to 10 days. That hurts. Danilo Gallinari is day-to-day, right? Yeah, he's day-to-day. DeAndre Hunter, underwent a non-surgical procedure and will return to the activity later this week. That's great news. And Cam Reddish to be evaluated in 2 weeks. They need those guys back to really pose a threat to those top 3 teams. and even possibly to get out of the first round. It's going to be tough, but the main reason is because of that defense. Like you bring in a guy like Clint Capella to really shore up that inside, but it doesn't change the fact that they can't really guard much on the perimeter. And that's, in the end, that's really going to tell, or show how far this team can go. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to talk about the top 10 sixth men in the NBA this season. Right after this.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. If you missed the last segment, I went over whether the Atlanta Hawks are a real contender this season, as they've made that run to the top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. I went over, everybody on the roster, the remaining schedule, whether they have a chance against the top 3 or even some of the other teams in the Eastern Conference. So if you guys want to check that out, please go ahead and do so. But now we're going to be talking about the top 10 sixth men in the NBA this season. We got a lot of great names on this list. I was having some trouble really putting this list in order, because there are some guys that have been playing incredible of late, though some of them have, kind of been put into that starting lineup, because of injuries and stuff. But, this is going to be a really fun list to talk about. So without further ado, let's get started. At number 10, I have Carmelo Anthony. In 53 games this season, he has started 3 times, so he's obviously going to be eligible for that Sixth Man of the Year award. He is averaging 13.3 points per game, 3.2 rebounds, 1.6 assists on about 41.3% from the field and 38% from the three-point line. So he's doing really well from that three-point line. But the main thing that Carmelo Anthony does when he comes off the bench is provide that dynamite scorer, the guy that, that microwave that could really just get it going on his own, be that ISO scorer. He can also be that spot up threat and really, force teams to really gravitate to him, especially when you got guys like Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum getting a rest on the bench. You got a Carmelo Anthony who is really the only other guy on that team that can kind of create for himself. You got Norman Powell to some extent, but Jusuf Nurkic, sure, but really the only guy that can really just go out and get a bucket, aside from CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard on that team, is Carmelo Anthony. He has done that consistently for them this season. His three-point shooting was lights out earlier on in the season, shooting 45% from 3. Obviously, that's gone down a bit, but he's still averaging 38%, which is very, still very solid. Like teams have to respect that shot. He's obviously still not, a big-time passer. He's a guy that's just going to go out and get buckets for you. But at 13.3 points per game, 3.2 rebounds, he's providing a very solid amount of production for that Portland Trailblazers team, who's having a very solid season off that bench. So Carmelo Anthony comes in at number 10, a legendary name. So happy he's back in the NBA, and so great that he's, kind of taken that backup role, in such a good way to become one of the best 6 men in the league. At number 9, I have DeAnthony Melton. This might be a little bit of a stretch for some of you, because just quickly, I'll give some honorable mentions. I left Shake Milton off this list, a guy who's played great off the bench for the Philadelphia 76ers. He has, 13 points a game. Not on great averages, though. He doesn't give you that, a crazy amount of defense. But he is a really strong offensive player. Danilo Gallinari for the Atlanta Hawks. He's also been very, very strong, providing some great shooting ability for that team, and a guy that can also just get buckets. And then, of course, a Derrick Rose, who got traded to the New York Knicks earlier this season and has provided very good minutes at that backup point guard role for that team. He's been huge for them. But I still feel a guy like DeAnthony Melton, who gives it to you on both sides of the floor. He can give you 10 points a game, 3.2 rebounds. He also passes the ball around a lot, about 3 assists a game off the bench. Those are solid numbers. And then he also gives you that defense. 1.2 steals per game. He's one of the most underrated point guard defenders in the league. It doesn't get talked about enough that DeAnthony Melton is an absolute lockdown defender on the perimeter. And the fact that he's also giving it to you offensively on crazy shooting numbers. He's shooting 48% from the field, which, sure, yeah, that's whatever. But 45% from three, he can do so many things when he comes onto the floor. He's, obviously he takes those minutes for John Morant when he goes in for a rest, and he provides some decent playmaking, almost 3 assists a game, decent scoring, and very good floor spacing. And then, of course, that perimeter defense that is always a key to DeAnthony Melton's game. So I combine all those things, and it was just nearly impossible to leave him off this list. I know he doesn't give you those crazy wow numbers, 10 points a game. That's nothing crazy to talk about. But still, he is one of the more underrated players in the league, in my opinion. So he comes in at number 9. At number 8, we have Terrence Ross. 45 games played this season. He's got only 2 starts. He is, I believe, second on this list in terms of points per game with 15.8 points per game. I mean, the man can just absolutely light it up on any given night. He can lead the Orlando Magic, especially now with no Nikola Vucevic. He's probably their go-to option offensively. I mean, he plays starter minutes, but he comes off the bench because he gives them that spark. He's not a guy that's going to do a lot more than just flat-out score for you, but 15.8 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 2.4 assists, gives you a steal per game, so he gives you a little bit on the defensive end, but his averages, his shooting numbers haven't been that great. 41% from the field, just under 34% from 3. He does shoot the ball a lot, but you still expect a little bit better than that. That's why I don't have him any higher on this list. Maybe I would have even put him below DeAnthony Melton. I just feel like Terrence Ross's ability to score the ball is incredible. He can do it in so many different ways and he can just absolutely take over a game on that side of the ball. And he's got some great length, great athleticism, so he keeps up with perimeter players pretty well. So he gives you some solid defense as well. But Terrence Ross, he's one of those guys that can absolutely win a 6th Man of the Year award. He just needs to be on a good team for that to happen. And obviously the Orlando Magic are now heading into a rebuild, so I feel like a trade would certainly be the best thing for him right now. Go to a team that needs, a very good scorer off the bench, Heat, and just really provide that offense, that offensive spark that he's been doing for pretty much all of his career. So Terrence Ross comes in at number 8. Number 7, we got a guy who's been absolutely killing it of late, Miles Bridges. 54 games played, he's got 8 starts, so I think he's already eligible for the 6th Man of the Year award, even if he starts the rest of the season. Because if I think 17 games, I'm pretty sure he's going to be, because I heard the rules, I looked it up, did some research. If they at least play more than half of their games off the bench, they are eligible for the 6th Man of the Year award. So Miles Bridges will be eligible, and he has been absolutely killing it. Though I don't think any of those starting numbers will really, I don't know how it works. If you start, does it really count? Because you're getting more minutes. But, I mean, the man has been absolutely killing it. Absolutely killing it. He has been huge. I mean, 11 points per game, 5.8 rebounds, 2 assists on 50% shooting, almost 39% from 3. I mean, he is doing it from everywhere. His athleticism, his length allows him to be a pretty solid defender as well. Even though he doesn't give you a lot of good counting stats, he's a decent help defender. Team defender. He does a lot of good rotations. He's still lacking a little bit on that end, which is why he doesn't move up any higher. There's also some really great bench guys coming later. But yeah, Miles Bridges has been absolutely incredible of late. If he continues that run, I mean, I would not be surprised if he goes, even higher on this list. But for now, he comes in at number 7. At number 6, I got Jalen Brunson of the Dallas Mavericks. In 50 games, he has 11 starts. I mean, this man has provided such great playmaking and scoring ability for this Dallas Mavericks team when Luka Doncic goes to the bench. Even times they play him together because he has been that good this season. 12.7 points per game, 3.6 rebounds, 3.5 assists on 52.6% from the field and 39.2% from three. I mean, the man is a bucket off the bench, provides another ball handler for that Dallas Mavericks team who doesn't really have many of those. I mean, really, aside from Luka Doncic, I would honestly say that Jalen Brunson is their second best creator off the dribble. And that's saying a lot, like for that team, because they got guys like Josh Richardson who has really just turned into a spot-up shooter. He'll do a little bit off the dribble, but like, do you really want him to? Like honestly, but yeah, Jalen Brunson has certainly played himself into that sixth man of the year conversation. He continues to get better and better, and he's super efficient with it. He can score in so many different ways. Of course, he's got that three ball. He can lay it up. He's got that mid-range game. He can do a lot of different things, and he also does it in the clutch, man. He has made a lot of clutch baskets for this team, and I'm just excited to see how his game develops as his career moves on. At number 5, I have this guy, man. This guy has just been such a pain in my side. TJ McConnell. I mean, if you don't have this man in your top 5-6 men of the year, I don't know what you're doing. I mean, he is leading this list in assists per game, steals per game. I mean, he can do it all for that Indiana Pacers team, man. I mean, when I see him play, you don't think anything of him. You really don't. He's like, yeah, whatever. He's a white guy that dribbles the ball a lot. He's okay. But, man, does he make so many smart plays. 8 points a game, 3.7 rebounds, 6.5 assists per game off the bench, 1.7 steals per game, which is among the league leaders, on ridiculous averages. 56.7% from the field, which means, and of course 32.3% from three, not a great three-point shooter, but that just goes to show with that 56% from the field, almost 57, he does not do anything more than what he knows he can do. He is such a smart player. He's a hustle guy, man. He is the epitome of hustle. He's he's got that IQ as well. There's just so many great things I could say about TJ McConnell, and I'm just so surprised by it because I never saw this coming. For him to look this good, he can easily be a starter on a lot of teams and provide some great playmaking, some great defense on the perimeter, and just smart plays. And that's the thing. He doesn't wow you with his scoring. I mean, only 8 points a game, but he knows when he needs to get his buckets. He knows when he needs to get guys involved. And that is someone you want off your bench. And that's what the Indiana Pacers have in TJ McConnell. So that's why he comes in at number 5. I was so close to putting him number 4, but I just think this next guy has just been so well for the best team in the league this season. So at number 4, and no, I do not mean Jordan Clarkson, I talk about Joe Ingles. Joe Ingles, 50 games played this season. He's got 14 starts. He's had to do some spot starts for when there's been some injuries, to Mike Conley specifically. And the reason they put Joe Ingles in for Mike Conley is because he is such a great playmaker. He's doing some great scoring as well. I mean, 12 points per game on 52% shooting and almost 49% from three. I mean, the man is an absolute bucket. He's a flamethrower from that three-point line. And then he also provides some very good ball handling and passing ability for his size. 3.6 rebounds, 4.2 assists per game, which I believe is second on this entire list. Yes, it is, right behind TJ McConnell. I mean, the man can do so many different things on the floor. He is just such a smart player for that team. He's really a thorn in anyone's side when you consider, just how many different things he can do for that Utah Jazz team. And that's one of the main reasons they are so good this season, because they're getting this incredible production from Joe Ingles off the bench. And, of course, one other player that's going to be coming later on this list. But, yeah, man, Joe Ingles is just one of those guys that, he doesn't have a lot of athleticism. He doesn't wow you with his play, but he just gets it done night in and night out and can do it in so many different ways. So Joe Ingles comes in at number 4. At number 3, we have a guy who's also eligible for a Most Improved Player of the Year award this season with his incredible play. Chris Boucher of the Toronto Raptors. 56 games played, 11 starts. He's averaging 13.5 points, 6.6 rebounds, 1.1 assists, and 1.9 blocks per game on 52% shooting from the field and 38% from three. I mean, it is so rare to have a big man that can protect the rim the way he does, but also shoot the ball the way he does. And it's so crazy. It looks so smooth when he shoots that ball. It looks like it's effortless for him. The only other guys that can really do that, you got like Kristaps Porzingis, Miles Turner, I guess to an extent, but his three-point shooting hasn't really been there this season. I mean, anyone else? I can't really put Joel Embiid there because he's not really a lights-out three-point shooter. He can obviously protect the rim, but I don't know, man. There's really only like a handful of guys that can do what Chris Boucher does. He is such a unique player in this NBA, and I mean, to provide that scoring threat off the bench, you know, his size is incredible, so obviously he can get a lot of rebounds, but he plays a lot on the perimeter, so you don't really see him getting a lot of offensive rebounds. He's still got to add some strength to himself, like that is for sure, but he's still only, 4 years or 3 years in the league, so he's still got a lot of room to grow, but Chris Boucher has had an extraordinary season. I mean, he has blown up on some games, so he can really take over a game at times. He already has that ability. And I'm just so impressed with what he's been able to show this season. I mean, just another young guy that goes through that Toronto system that improves and shows that what he's got and is one of the better players off the bench in the NBA this season. That's why Chris Boucher comes in at number 3. At number 2, we got Montrezl Harrell. 56 games played, 1 start for the Los Angeles Lakers. And as always, he is a monster down low. I mean, giving you 14.2 points per game on almost 62% from the field. He gives you that 6.7 rebounds as well, which is the highest on this list. Just 0.1 rebounds more than Chris Boucher. Gives you 1.1 assists per game as well. Defensively, you could do a lot better than Montrezl Harrell, but in terms of a hustle player that'll get you points inside and really just carry a second unit offensively and inside as well, you know, you're looking at Montrezl Harrell. You know, he's also a really big body, so he can definitely bang with those, you know, big centers down low, and he's quick enough, so he can certainly hang with, you know, perimeter players as well. He's just in terms of defensive IQ, he just does not have it there yet. But when you're talking about a guy who can score in a variety of ways inside, a muscle guy that can really rebound the ball and just lead a second unit and honestly just be one of your top scorers in any given day, you got Montrezl Harrell there, and he is one of the best players in this league. It was incredible to see him make that Los Angeles Clippers to Lakers move. I can't even think of anybody who's ever actually done that. But Montrezl Harrell, man, he is certainly back in that discussion as one of the best 6 men in the year. He won it last year, so obviously, it's not like he's gone anywhere. But still, Montrezl Harrell just doing his role as best as he can and just once again being in that conversation for 6 men of the year. But he is not number 1 because the actual number 1 player on this list is, of course, Jordan Clarkson. I mean, it is not even close what Jordan Clarkson has been doing this season compared to Montrezl Harrell. I mean, there is a huge gap between him and Montrezl Harrell. It's almost guaranteed that Jordan Clarkson is going to be winning the 6 Man of the Year award this season. 51 games played, he's got no starts, so he is a pure 6 man for this Utah Jazz team. And it's crazy to think that they got 2 players in the top 4 on this list. I mean, there's really no surprise that this Utah Jazz team is as good as they are when you got 2 guys coming off the bench that are doing it as good as anyone in the league. And Jordan Clarkson at 17.2 points per game, 3.9 rebounds, 2.2 assists, gives you a little bit of defense as well with his length and his athleticism. You know, his averages are not crazy. I mean, 42.2% from the field, almost 35% from 3, but he shoots the ball a lot. I think he shoots the ball second most on the team because he got a haluva green light from Quinn Snyder, and he does it in such a great way because he is shooting the ball as good as he ever has. I'm talking about in terms of the way he's getting those shots off, because for as long as I can remember, Jordan Clarkson, he can get shots off the dribble, kind of drive in off that kick, driving kick, But to be able to just dribble it on the perimeter, kind of take a step back and shoot, he's got a new level of confidence this season, and it is taking him all the way to a 6th Man of the Year award. I mean, you got to be impressed with what he has been able to do for himself and what he's doing for this Utah Jazz team. And now, unfortunately, I just heard Donovan Mitchell has a knee injury. I do not know what the extent of that injury is, but if he has to miss games, they're lucky to have a guy like Jordan Clarkson that I'm not sure if he's going to start because he hasn't started all season, but Donovan Mitchell hasn't been out for, I think he's been playing most of this year. So maybe they're going to be putting Jordan Clarkson into that starting lineup, and he's going to provide a very solid scoring threat in that starting unit. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm loving bringing this content to you guys. But as always, thank you for listening to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you and have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.